The Philadelphia 76ers managed to squeak by the league's worst Washington Wizards in what was an outright embarrassing performance from this team. If it was not for Gershon Yabusele there to rescue today for the Sixers team, we very well may have been walking into the bar being raised for the most embarrassing loss of the season once again. But nonetheless, that did not happen, and the Sixers did find a way to win. It was a 109-103 victory here. To highlight a couple of the box scores, I mentioned Gershon Yabusele played 34 minutes tonight, finished with 21 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks. Shot 5 of 7 from beyond the three-point arc, 6 and 11 from 3. Tyrese Maxey finished with 29 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, 11 of 27 from the field, and 3 for 14 from 3. And one of the worst performances of Tyrese Maxey's career that I've seen. And I do want to dig into that a little bit. We'll also note Kelly Oubre with 15 points. It was nice to see some signs of life from Eric Gordon, who also added 15 points. And do want to highlight Kelly specifically did also add 4 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Nice to see the defensive buy-in still remains from him. For Gordon specifically, shot 4 of 7 from 3. Also added 2 rebounds there, an assist and a steal. Solid game for Gordon. Probably his best as a Sixer thus far, but I want to keep the main thing here. This was an embarrassing performance from this Sixers team. This was another example of a matchup where they straight up sleepwalked into believing we're the better team, so we're just going to walk away with the result. That is not how the NBA works, and it has not been all season. That is the direct reason why they sit exactly in the standings where they are in the standings. This Sixers team has the talent and the pieces to be a championship contender. Yes, there's been inconsistent play time, guys missing games like tonight in which there was no Paul George and no Joel Embiid. But guess what? The Washington Wizards were missing guys too, and they're a professional basketball team. They gave you their best effort, and the Sixers did not bring theirs. They were losing to this Wizards team, the league worst Wizards team, and to put in perspective just exactly how bad they are. Shout out to Derek Barnard of PHLY Sports here that says the Wizards are 1-13 on the road this season, 30th in offense, and 30th in defense. They're missing 3 starters, and they're on the second night of a back-to-back. And at the point of this tweet, it was a 3-point game with 5:07 left to play, and it got worse than that. That this Sixers team was losing with 1:08 on the clock. This is downright embarrassing for this team. Now, I get they got the result. A win is a win is a win is the bottom line takeaway. But am I cool with the process that it was to get there? Absolutely not, and that is an all too familiar feeling with this team. Now, let's start right at the top with Tyrese Maxey here. Now, we saw the performance that he did bring, and to highlight a little bit more kind of my takeaways from this game, also did want to note that they did get out-rebounded 52-36. I don't have that much of an issue with the Nick Nurse decision to start Yabusele as the 5. I understand Jonas Valanciunas is one of the more traditional centers that you're ever going to match up with, but frankly, Yabusele has earned every single opportunity he's get. I think I'd make it a hard case right now why he's been the best player on the Sixers team all season, and it is incredibly frustrating that he likely is going to walk away this offseason. To give you a little bit of behind baseball, behind the scenes here, going away this weekend for the next couple days, so I've been really hard at work trying to rip out a couple videos to have scheduled out. Do have a breakdown coming for what the contract outlook is for him, as well as a takeaway about Maxey. But both those points were put at the forefront of tonight's performance, and I do want to recognize both. So for Tyrese Maxey specifically, you were asked to be the superstar of this team. You in the nights in which Joel Embiid and Paul George are not there, you are the guy. That's why you were handed a max contract this offseason. That's why you signed on the dotted lines for $35 million on per year annual basis. And by the way, that's an increase in contract. We're talking 40 plus per year by the tail end of that. But I'm not worried about money. I'm not worried about pocket watching. What I'm worried about is you playing better basketball. And what we've seen from you tonight is far more concerned with when you're getting calls or how your step back looks or anything like that than the actual production on the court. And it is the referee side of things that's particularly bugged me with Tyrese. Now, look, can we squint and look at the numbers and act like he had a good game? Sure. The ultimate statistical output, he finished with 29 points here, had 6 assists, had 2 steals. He shot 11 of 27 from the field, 3 of 14 from 3. He was 1 of 10 from beyond the arc at halftime. That's not good enough. It never is. And now part of the frustrations with Tyrese, I do think he's very much been a beneficiary of playing next to Joel Embiid. That you see the gravity that he creates, the defensive attention that Joel Embiid commands for being one of these true MVP caliber, top tier A1 stars that the league has. There are not very many. Tyrese has very much always been a Robin. Now we're asking him to be a Batman, to be a guy who stepped to center stage. And it's a different ballgame. It's different standards. It's different defensive looks. Even tonight, I think a lot of the issues were, it was very clear the Wizards were sending 2 at him, sending 3 at him, not letting him be the guy who can get to the spots where he's comfortable. Now, granted, that is not an excuse. This comes with expectation. As far as your trajectory, Tyrese, this should be you having counters to that, knowing that we've seen opportunities where plenty of guys look across NBA history. How many of these players have gone through this exact same developmental arc? It's weird to me that there seems to be a sticking point with Tyrese right now. And I think what I have the most of a problem with is it feels like he's internalizing it in every way that it shouldn't be. That how this should hit you is you got to say, okay, I got to figure out, I got to have better counters. I got to read the defense better, understand where the double's coming from, where they're vulnerable because that guy came up. If a guy is flashing from the corner, that man is open over there. If they're bringing another guard at me, we probably have a 2-and-1 on this side of the floor. Things like that make basketball sense. For Tyrese specifically, it just feels like internal frustrations that he is letting out in the worst of ways. And that is the exact thing that we didn't like about Tyrese Maxey. When you think about what his calling card as a human being on the basketball floor has been, it's been a model of positivity. A guy who is all smiles, wears his heart on his sleeve, plays hard night in and night out. And to be perfectly honest, that's not the version of him that we've seen this year. Now, to get off the negative train a little bit, I do want to highlight a couple positivities. To go back to the box score here, Kelly Oubre continues to play probably the best stretch of basketball that we've seen from him in his entire career. Now, statistically, he did not shine as much tonight. He finished with 15 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He shot just 1 of 6 from 3, 7 of 14 from the field, but I thought Kelly was great. He's a guy who continues to do these things I'm talking about, which is bring it on the floor. Bring that level of energy, bring that level of impact, make things happen even when the shots are not falling. To look beyond that, Gershon Yabusele could not give him enough flowers. This dude does everything this Sixers team asks of him, connects from 3. 5 of 7 from 3. I believe that is an NBA career high for him tonight. Shout out to Yabu, man, who continues to step into center stage. And at worst, he's been the 4th best player on the Sixers this year. Frankly, I think there's a pretty convincing argument that it's higher than that he's brought more to the Sixers team as far as production. But the reality is there is a lot more to work. Now, to highlight a couple other things, this brought up a pretty notable point to me. So we all know there was a huge game tonight between the Cleveland Cavaliers and Oklahoma City Thunder. The NBA as a whole has really been thrusting this into the forefront. Now, me personally had my little 2 TV setup, had the Cavs and Thunder on the bottom, had the Sixers and Wizards up top, wanted to tune into the announcers, feel the action of the Sixers a little bit. But what really stood out to me was the stark contrast between these two games. I understand the Wizards are bottom feeders, and that should be expected, but you know what? So are the Sixers, if we want to call a spade a spade. Looking at the quality of basketball on the bottom screen compared to the top screen really stood out to me. That if the Sixers team wants to be considered legitimate championship contenders, frankly, they're just not right now. Now, can all that be changed if they have a month-long of sample size where we see what Paul George looks like playing alongside Joel Embiid, playing alongside Tyrese Maxey, where Tyrese starts to come out of his shooting slump, and we see the player that we've really seen for the past 3 years of his career, 4 years of his career now, where he has settled in and been that guy. The rookie year, I guess, is the outlier there, where he shot 30% from 3, but the player that he's flashed to be a top 5% three-point shooter, a guy who brings energy, can take guys off the dribble, that is not the version of Tyrese that we're getting here. And that is where things stop for me. Now, to take it a step farther for this, do want to highlight that none of this can fully come complete without the injury factor. That is obviously the overarching thing. But where my frustrations fall in for that is the game plan has to change. That I understand conceptually the mindset coming into the season with we're going to take these rest days. We're going to make sure we preserve ourselves to make sure we're getting to the playoffs. Well, that only works if you're in the playoffs, if you have an opportunity to get there. At this current point, sure, they have a chance. There's still a lot of basketball left to be played, but tonight was the type of game where you should have been of a get-right spot. It feels like all too often at this point that get-right spots only come when teams are playing against the Sixers. The Warriors are an example of that. The Suns are an example of that. Both those happened this week where teams had the Sixers circled on their calendar, said we can win this game and prove that we mean something. That can be a notable victory for us. When do the Sixers get one of those? When can you find your get-right spot? And I can't ask for a better opportunity for, once again, the worst team in the NBA. That is who the Sixers played tonight, and that is who they allowed a lead to with 1 minute and 8 seconds left to play in this game. It is embarrassing stuff from start to finish. I don't know if it's effort, I don't know if it's scheme, I don't know if it's talent, but the reality is everything that we've seen from the Sixers team has not been what we expected, and tonight really was one of the more frustrating performances that I can see. For Tyrese Maxey specifically, you got to dig it out, man. You got to figure this out. You have to get back on track to growing into the guy that this organization expects you to be. Money comes with expectation in the NBA. And yes, it has been a seamless transition to this point, that you've been the guy with the gold stamps, with the rose-colored glasses for how you have been viewed to this point. But expectations have changed when you got a little bit more on your shoulders. And that is the reality. That's what we're seeing. And what we aren't seeing is him delivering on those expectations right now. So I understand these growing pains are going to happen. The bottom line, the biggest takeaway should be that this Sixers team did win the game tonight. But was it pretty? Absolutely not. Did I appreciate the focus, the desire from this team? No. I think the reality is what we're seeing night after night, game after game, is this Sixers team just may not be a serious franchise this year. That it does not feel like they carry themselves with the necessary professionalism that it requires to be elite at this sport. That is what it takes if you want to win at the biggest stage, on the highest level, the way the Sixers seemingly or talk like they desire to or act like they desire to. But the proof is not in the pudding here. We have not physically seen this ball on the court playing that quality of basketball. That has to change moving forward if this team's going to have a chance. Once again, I do think the biggest takeaway is you just got to get this team healthy and playing together at a regular rate. It's not going to work. Tonight was the 22nd different starting lineup that we've seen. The 22nd different starting lineup that we've seen all season. There's been 35 basketball games. Out of those 35 games, there's been 22 different starting lineups. That is absurd stuff and just straight up should not happen on a basketball team basically ever. But that is the boat that the Sixers are in, and they got to find a way to keep rolling on from here. So I guess the bottom line that I will rest easy at night is it was a win. This was not one that slipped away or one that you're going to have to regret for the rest of the season. The bottom line is when you look at the wins and losses column, this one went in the right one. But everything about their process and how they got there, the way they carried themselves across it, I absolutely hated for this Wizards team. So we will see what happens from here for this Sixers organization, but it has been as dark as could possibly be. I understand it's a win. I'm going to try and take some deep breaths, relax, and move on, but I could not be more frustrated after that victory there. So let me know if you guys are on the same page as me, or if you are as fed up with how this season has gone, but that truly was probably the most frustrating victory that I've ever seen from a Sixers team here. So appreciate each and one of you guys tuning in this video here. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a like on this video. Do have a couple videos rolling out soon where we kind of break down each aspect of things. Want to talk specifically about Maxey and his debate with the refs. Want to talk specifically about the outlook and how they could potentially keep Gershon Yabusele, as well as a couple guard targets that I do think could improve this team in the short term. It is crystal clear to me that there has to be an upgrade if this team wants to keep its head above water, and that has to be the goal. That's the only thing that makes sense to me to this point. So make sure you're staying tuned for those, and once again, the best way to do that is by smashing that subscribe button in the corner there. So appreciate each and one of you guys tuning in as always, and talk to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.